What if I told you the NBA was built on a lie, and the black men who proved it never got paid for doing so? What if I told you a group of black players were the best basketball players in the country? Everybody knew it. The crowd showed up to prove it, and a room full of white men in suits still sat around a table and quietly agreed to keep them out. Not because they were not good enough. They were good enough, and the white men at that table knew it. They kept them out because letting black players in meant splitting the money. And they had not built this league to share it with anybody who looked like them. This is not a story about the NBA eventually doing the right thing. This is a story about a group of black men being robbed. Robbed of contracts, robbed of salaries, robbed of the league-wide recognition and generational wealth that their talent had already earned. While white owners got rich off the same game those black men were perfecting. And the most infuriating part? The moment that made the whole lie impossible to deny? It happened in front of 18,000 witnesses, and the league still did not budge. By the end of this video, you are going to understand exactly how the NBA's so-called integration really happened, who it actually protected, and why the men most responsible for forcing it never saw a dime of what they were owed. Picture Chicago Stadium, February 19th, 1948. It is freezing outside, but inside, 17,823 people are packed into a building that had never once drawn 9,000 fans to a basketball game. They are not there for the main event. The headliner that night is the Chicago Stags versus the New York Knicks. What is happening before that game, the so-called warm-up act, is what people came to see, because everyone in that city knew something was about to go down. On one side of the court, the Minneapolis Lakers, the best professional basketball team in the country. Their center, George Mikan, was a 6'10" monster who dominated the game in ways nobody had ever seen before. The Lakers had just won the National Basketball League title. They were the gold standard of the sport. On the other side, the Harlem Globetrotters, all black, over 100 straight wins, and not allowed, not even considered, for the Basketball Association of America, the league that would soon become the NBA. The owners of that league had a story they told themselves and anyone who would listen. Black players were not coachable. They did not have the competitive drive. They could not handle the complexity of professional-level plays. They said this out loud. Owners and fans repeated it like it was fact. And because there was no written ban, just a quiet agreement between powerful white men, they never had to defend it in public. That night in Chicago, the Globetrotters were about to make them defend it on the court instead. Halftime came, and the Lakers were up 32-23. Mikan had been unstoppable in the first half, dropping 18 points while holding Globetrotter center Reese "Goose" Tatum completely scoreless. In the locker room, Abe Sapperstein, the Globetrotters owner, made a decision. Instead of one man on Mikan, they would throw two, and every time they got the ball, they would push the pace, run hard, and wear the bigger Lakers down in the second half. It was a chess move in the middle of a boxing match. The second half was a different game entirely. The Globetrotters chipped away. Then they took the lead. Then the Lakers clawed back. With seconds left, the game was tied at 59. Marcus Haynes, one of the greatest ball handlers who ever lived, got the ball and did something almost unbelievable. He dribbled. For what felt like forever, nearly 90 full seconds in real time, weaving between defenders, staying low, protecting that ball like it was the most precious thing on earth. The Lakers could not take it from him. Nobody could. Haynes waited until the moment was exactly right, then dumped it off to Irma Robinson. Robinson caught it, squared up, and launched a mid-range jumper just before the buzzer sounded. Swish! Globetrotters 61, Lakers 59. The place exploded. 18,000 people in a building that almost never sold 9,000 tickets for basketball. They had just watched a team the NBA refused to acknowledge walk into the league's own backyard and beat its best team. Now here is what the owners did next. And this is where the story goes from exciting to infuriating. They called it a fluke. They said the Lakers had been without two key players that night, Jim Pollard and Swede Carlson. They said it did not count for much. They minimized it, dismissed it, and moved on. The unspoken policy stayed in place. Not a single black player made a BAA roster that season, or the next. But here is something they could not explain away. The crowd. almost double the record for a basketball game at that building. The money was right there in front of them, and they knew it. One historian put it plainly: basketball's moguls quickly understood the dollars and cents meaning of that victory. Talented black players improved the game. Fans would pay to see them. That was not a secret after February 19, 1948. That was a fact sitting in the middle of the room that everyone pretended not to see. And this is exactly how they get away with it: telling one story in public while doing something completely different in private. Hey family, real talk. YouTube has shut down channels for telling exactly these kinds of stories. So I need you to find us off this platform. Go to blackstories-untold.com, join our mailing list, and make sure we stay connected no matter what they do. Now, back to what happened next, because the story was not done. 1 year later, February 28, 1949, the Globetrotters and the Lakers met again. This time, 20,046 people showed up, breaking the record the first game had just set. The Globetrotters came back from 6 points down at halftime and won again, 49-45. Twice. They beat the best team in professional basketball twice. The NBA still did not open its doors. But the full picture here is even bigger than 2 wins, because these games were happening inside a structure that was rotten from the very beginning. And to understand that, you need to understand who actually built the Globetrotters and what he was getting out of all of this. The Harlem Globetrotters did not start in Harlem. They started on the south side of Chicago in 1926, launched by a black basketball player and jazz singer named Tommy Brookins. A white booking agent named Abe Sapperstein soon took over the business. Sapperstein was 5 feet 3 inches tall. He grew up on the north side of Chicago, the son of Polish-Jewish immigrants, and he turned the Globetrotters into the most famous basketball organization in the world. He also turned them into his personal empire. At a time when the BAA and then the NBA were quietly refusing to let black players in, Sapperstein had the only platform for elite black basketball talent in the country. He knew it. He used it. According to historians, the NBA's ban on black players was at least partly kept in place for Sapperstein's benefit. He wanted first pick of every promising black player coming up, and since the Globetrotters were a bigger draw than the BAA, he got exactly that. Think about what that means. The league was not just keeping black players out because of racism alone. They were doing it partly to protect the business arrangement of one white man who controlled black athletes as a resource. The players slept in their bus when hotels refused to let black people through the door. They stayed in tiny 10-by-10 rooms at a rooming house called Ma Pearsall's on the segregated South Side, while the Lakers relaxed at the Morrison Hotel downtown, the same hotel that had just turned away a black actress and told her to find somewhere for colored people. The night before the biggest game of their careers, the men who were about to expose the NBA's dirty secret were sleeping in a building where the beds sagged and the rooms barely fit a person sideways. And this is where everything connects. Sapperstein fired the entire team once when players threatened to strike over pay. Future Hall of Famer Marcus Haynes, the same man who dribbled the clock nearly dead in the 1948 game, later said openly that Sapperstein underpaid him. When the NBA eventually started wanting specific black players, Sapperstein did not step aside. He sold their contracts. The New York Knicks paid him $12,500, about $167,000 in today's money, to acquire Nat Sweetwater Clifton in 1950. The players had no say. Sapperstein controlled the transaction. He was not liberating his players into the NBA. He was selling them. Now here is the moment the whole thing cracked open. And it did not come from morality. It came from money and ego. By 1950, the NBA's legitimacy problem was becoming impossible to ignore. The Globetrotters had beaten the best team in the league twice, in front of record crowds, proving publicly that black players were not just equal, they were elite. The unspoken argument for exclusion had been exposed as a lie on the court, in front of tens of thousands of witnesses. Then Ned Irish, the president of the New York Knicks, decided he wanted Sweetwater Clifton to play center for his team. And when the other owners pushed back on integration, Irish made it simple. He threatened to leave the league. That was enough. The quiet agreement that had kept black players out since 1946 collapsed. Not because owners had a change of heart. It collapsed because one franchise decided the cost of keeping the agreement was higher than the cost of breaking it. On April 25, 1950, the Boston Celtics drafted Chuck Cooper in the second round. When the pick was announced, another owner interrupted the room. "Don't you know he's colored?" Celtic owner Walter Brown's response, as the story goes, was something like, "I do not care if he's striped, plaid, or polka dot." Whether those were his exact words or not, and historians have noted the quote may have been polished over time, the sentiment was documented. Brown broke ranks. The Celtics made Cooper the first black player ever drafted in NBA history. On May 24, 1950, the Knicks purchased Sweetwater Clifton's contract from Sapperstein and signed him to the league's first contract with a black player. On October 31, 1950, Earl Lloyd of the Washington Capitals stepped onto the court and became the first black man to actually play in an NBA game. All three men eventually made it to the Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame: Lloyd in 2003, Clifton in 2014, Cooper in 2019. But do not let the Hall of Fame plaques clean up the story. Integration did not happen because the NBA grew a conscience. It happened because a black team from Chicago had made the league look like fools for 4 straight years in front of paying crowds that kept breaking records. The owners could see the money, they could see the talent, and they could see that the argument they had been hiding behind was dust. The Globetrotters exposed all of it, and then got nothing for it. No franchise, no ownership stake, no formal acknowledgement. Abe Sapperstein spent years trying to get an NBA team of his own. He believed the league owed him after years of sending Globetrotter doubleheaders around the country to prop up attendance for struggling NBA franchises. When the Lakers moved to Los Angeles, he believed he had been promised that market. He was denied. When the Warriors moved to San Francisco, he applied. Denied again. So he started his own league in 1961, the American Basketball League, and became its commissioner. That league introduced the three-point shot, a rule the NBA adopted in 1979 and uses to this day. Sapperstein died in 1966 without ever getting the franchise he wanted. But here is what that whole arc actually tells you. The NBA used the Globetrotters to fill seats, to prove the sport could draw massive crowds, to make money, and to benchmark what elite basketball looked like. Then, when they finally decided to integrate, they bought the players directly from Sapperstein like they were inventory. 2 of the first 3 black NBA players, Clifton and Cooper, came straight out of the Globetrotter system. The league was built in part on black excellence and black labor from the very beginning. They just refused to call it that until the embarrassment became too expensive to absorb. And Sapperstein himself was the twist nobody wanted to talk about. He gave black players the only serious platform available to them during the era of exclusion. He genuinely elevated players, helped Jesse Owens financially when the Olympic legend fell on hard times, and put black faces in authority inside his organization. But he also held his players' futures in his hands and sold them when the price was right. He fought to keep black players out of the NBA as long as it protected his business. Some civil rights voices at the time called the Globetrotters out directly, accusing them of performing buffoonery for a white owner who profited from their talent. The players were caught between a man who gave them the only game in town and a man who made sure no other town ever opened its doors. That is the full picture. Not just the NBA's lie, but the system around it. The interlocking arrangements between white power brokers that kept black athletes performing for someone else's gain, no matter which direction they turned. The Globetrotters beat the Minneapolis Lakers on February 19, 1948. They proved the merit argument was fiction. They drew the biggest basketball crowd Chicago had ever seen. They did it again in 1949. And the NBA, exposed, embarrassed, economically threatened, quietly dismantled the ban 2 years later and called it progress. Progress, as if they had not spent 4 years watching the proof walk through the door and turning it away. The men who broke that barrier, Cooper, Clifton, Lloyd, they are legends. But the men who made that barrier indefensible? Irma Robinson, who hit that buzzer beater. Marcus Haynes, who dribbled the Lakers into exhaustion. Goose Tatum, who went up against the greatest center of his era. Those men never played a single NBA minute. They did the work that cracked the wall open and watched other men walk through it. That is the story they erased. Not because it was minor, because it was too powerful. Because it showed that Black excellence was never the question. The question was always, who controlled the doors? This was Black Stories Untold, and as always, thanks for watching. If you want more stories like this, click the video on your screen now.